You may be seated.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
This is the case of Bouman versus Bouman.
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone.
Good day.
Ms. Bouman, you've dragged your daughter, Kalina, to court to save your relationship. You admit after years of deception and confusion, you now must prove to her that her actual biological father is Mr. James Stewart, who passed away 18 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Kalina Bouman, you say your mother's paternity lies have jeopardized your relationship, and you don't believe her latest claim that Mr. Stewart is your father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Stewart, you say there's no way that your deceased father is Ms. Bowman's biological father and want to clear his name in court today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Bouman,
Yes.
why are these results so important for you today?
Over the years, I have lied to my daughter, and for the past 4 years, it's become very hard on our relationship. I used to be real close to her, and now it feels like I've literally tore it completely apart. And I need to prove to her that her father is James Stewart and is deceased.
You say over the years you've lied to her.
I've told her that another, Mr. Watson was her father.
Explain.
It all started when she was little. When I first met Mr. Stewart, met him at a company that I worked with, and we started working, became friends and everything, real close. We became sexual. It got to where I found out there was somebody else. I decided to break apart from him and move to another job. I needed to get away from him. So I started talking to Mr. Watson. Then I found out after being with him for a while that I was pregnant. And I told Mr. Watson that there was a possibility that it wasn't. And at the time, it didn't matter to him. At first, it was like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, yeah, it's not mine. Yeah, it is mine. And it kind of ran like that.
Ms. Bouman,
Yes, Your Honor.
so you're having a difficult time having a relationship with your mother.
Yes.
Explain to me the nature of that relationship.
It's been hard because the simple fact I don't know when she's lying or telling the truth anymore when it comes to my
And
life.
so she told you another man was your biological father,
Yes, Your Honor.
and you believed all these years Mr. Watson was your biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
So when did you find out that he was not?
I found out during the summer going into high school that he was not my father. While I was forced to be taken out of my mother's house and go to his house where I had no contact with my mother. And then when I finally was able to go back around to my mother, she told me that he might not be my father and that James Stewart might be my father.
Take me back to that day. What happened?
That day, I was taken from my mother's house by Mr. Watson and was not able to contact her for 2 months or get on social media or anything to have contact with her, my boyfriend.
Really?
And then when I was able to go back around that day, she was like, oh, he might not be your father, and it's a possibility that James Stewart is your father, and we're gonna go downtown to take the court. And I was confused because all these years you told me that Mr. Watson was my father. And then when we went to go take the test, when the test results finally came back after 2 weeks, I was nervous and didn't know what to think. And I read the results, even though she told me not to. And when I read them, it said that Mr. Watson wasn't my father. And I broke down. And I was just hurt why she lied to me for 16 years. And I didn't know what to do, so I stopped talking to her for a month and a half.
So, Ms. Bouman, take me back to that day. Your daughter was crushed. I mean, she says it just broke her.
At the time, Kalina had just came over to my house. She had just moved in with me. And I happened to go to work one day, and Mr. Watson had recently got married. And his wife, she told him, that's your child, you go get him. So he literally walked up in my house, and yes, he did come in there and take her. I wasn't there. He told me, well, since you want to sit up here and say this ain't my daughter, prove it. I turned around and I went downtown and I requested a paternity test. The results came back, and I sat there and I told her, I said, I didn't do this to hurt you.
And so is it your assertion that you knew all of the time there was a question, or you knew for certain Mr. Watson wasn't?
I didn't know for sure, but when I sat there and started calculating back the time of when I was messing with Mr. Stewart, it was always connecting back to Mr. Stewart.
I just can't trust her because she lied.
So what you're saying is you don't even believe this assertion is based upon any real evidence or fact. You think she's just naming someone else?
Yes, Your Honor. It's still the simple fact that she lied for so many years. So who knows if there's another man or if it's just them two.
Your whole foundation has just been rocked.
Yes,
You don't know what to believe.
pretty much.
If you want more episodes of Paternity Court, make sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell. Mr. Stewart,
Yes, Your Honor.
when you heard about Ms. Bouman, did you believe that you all shared a biological father?
No, Your Honor.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Explain.
My father has had numerous of women say that their children was his, and just came to find out that it wasn't true. And just this right here,
What is this, sir?
timeline.
Walk me through it.
Back when I was 8, he was working at the sub shop with her.
Okay.
And I remember him working there because I distinctly remember getting my ears pierced at 8 years old.
And that was in 1993.
93. And I remember him around in the middle of 93, close to 94, leaving the sub shop and not working there.
And he doesn't work there anymore as
No.
of around 1994.
Close to 94, yeah.
And in 1995 is when Ms. Bouman, mom, would have been pregnant with Ms. Bouman.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Bouman,
Yes.
you claimed in your testimony that you were working with Mr. Stewart's father at this place when Kalina was conceived. Am I correct?
Yes.
So your assertion, Mr. Stewart, is that doesn't add up
Doesn't add up to me. It really doesn't.
because your father quit this job in 1994.
Yeah.
That's actually
Early
a lie
94.
because he actually stopped working at that restaurant in February of 95. He would come in, do his shift or whatever. Then there was times that he wouldn't come in because he was a manager. He had me, I was right up under him as an assistant manager.
Ms. Bouman, I see you brought a witness. I'd like to hear from her. Ma'am, would you please stand and step to the podium, please?
Give me a minute.
Okay. Please state your name for the record, ma'am.
I'm Lillian Jane Watson.
Thank you for joining us today. You are Mr. Watson's mother. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have doubts that your son was Kalina's father?
No.
Never. Explain.
Well, her mother left a letter saying that my son was the father. She had other 3 kids, so I told her she didn't have to worry about my granddaughter. I'll do everything that's possible for her, and I did. Kay has been living with me most of her entire life.
Really?
When she would go to her mother, she'd stay. I'll pick her up every weekend. If there's a grandmother that deserves a award, it should be me, but I don't want the award. I'm here because I love her. She's my baby. She put a letter in my mailbox with a piece of paper saying that James Stewart was not her father.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me see that evidence.
I got a long letter about how my son, Kalina, her feet, his heels, and her blood.
You're
her
saying
eye-
that Ms. Bouman put a letter in your mailbox.
Yes, ma'am. And Kay was born in January. She gave me the letter in February.
This is a letter from February 27th, 1996. It reads, Ms. Bouman, your results of the paternity test performed on 1/11/96 on Kalina Bouman and Mr. James Stewart shows that Mr. Stewart is not the biological father of your child, Kalina, born on 1/6/96. Did you put this letter in Ms. Watson's mailbox, Ms. Bouman?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
And the letter
And I
too.
did it because at the time, Mr. Watson, when I got back in a relationship with him, we sat there, we talked and everything. It was all discussed out.
But wait, what do you mean it was discussed?
It was discussed that Kalina was his daughter.
So you just created this. This letter is just a lie.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute.
saying that.
That's not a...
She's saying in court today, ma'am, Miss Watson, that this is not an official letter. This is something that she just wrote and typed up.
I've never had a test done with James Stewart.
My God, my God. You know you have bestest kids, Lord. Jesus.
That's why I say I don't believe it. Because he's had 3 other women that done did this.
And Ernest is always gonna be your dad. He hurting just like you are. You can't talk around it. He gets very emotional and stuck. He loves you. It's not a day we don't talk about you.
So, Miss Bouman, you know, I have to come back to you because you've basically just admitted in court today that this was fabricated, this letter that you basically typed up and put in this woman's mailbox. Why?
I did it because I was actually in love with Mr. Watson. And it was, I wanted a child, this is my child. And I lost contact with Mr. Stewart, so I left it alone.
The truth is, you wanted to be with Mr. Watson.
Yeah.
You loved him. So you wanted him to think that Kalina was his child so that you could hold on to him.
Yes.
You cannot use a child to keep a man. It doesn't work. It never works. And sure enough, as it has happened over and over again, Mr. Watson moves on. Miss Bouman, did Mr. Stewart ever know of Kalina? Did you
Actually,
talk to him about
I ran into Mr. Stewart back in '98 at a convenience store right up the street from where I lived. And it kind of shocked me. I was surprised to see him. And he was like, well, I heard you had a little girl, 2 years. She's 2 years old. I said, yes, I do. At the time, Kalina was with me. So he was like, do you mind if I see her? I said, sure. I took him down to my house because I stayed right down the street from the store. He sat there and he looked at her and he was like, wow. Okay. He said, I'm getting ready to go home and make some phone calls. I said, phone calls for what? Oh, I'm about to set up a paternity, I want a paternity test. I want a DNA test. You ain't got to worry about nothing. I'll pay for the whole entire thing because if that's my daughter, everybody's going to know about her. He went home, he made the appointments, he called me. He said, this is the day we're going to go do it. The day came that we were supposed to go and do it, and I got a phone call from one of his friends. And they said, Angie, I got some bad news. I was like, what? He said, Pookie's not coming. I was like, what you mean? Pookie's killed. He was murdered. After that, everything just dropped. I left it alone.
So you're saying the very day that you all planned to go and get the DNA test,
he was murdered.
My
He was
God.
murdered.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Because I lived with my daddy that year. I was 13 years old. I was 13. My father told me everything. I ain't had a sibling for 28 years. 29 years. My baby brother got killed when he was 2. I didn't have no sibling. So I would have wanted a sibling all my life. My father would have told me that.
He didn't want to bring her out until the test was completely
He wouldn't
done.
hide the hell nothing from me. My father told me everything. That's why I can't believe it, because there's so many women that done did this and then said that their kids was mine, and I had to grow up without a sibling. That hurts.
you don't believe the fact that Ms. Bouman's saying that he just didn't want to say anything to anybody until he knew for sure.
I don't believe that, Your Honor.
And you don't even believe the test was scheduled.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. My father would have told me everything.
All right. I've heard enough testimony. It's time for the results. Jerome? These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows. Because there wasn't a blood card available to test the DNA of the deceased, James Stewart, we performed a sibling test in order to determine if the deceased son, James Stewart, is related to Kalina Bouman. Do you want to watch Paternity Court on TV? Go to paternitycourt.tv to find your local listings. In the case of Bouman versus Bouman, it has been determined by this court that James Stewart and Kalina Bouman are related.
over now, baby. It's over. It's over. Oh, man.
And since that's my granddaughter, you her brother, then you can be my son too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Feel free to stand with your grandchildren.
Because I don't have a grandparent at all.
Oh, well, honey, you...
At all. All my grandparents are gone.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
Angie, get over here. I love you all. I can't hate nobody, Lord.
Finally telling the truth.
Oh, thank
Don't
you,
lie again.
Miss Bouman, what would you like to say to your daughter?
I'm sorry that I did this and put you through this. And I hope that you can forgive me and we can start rebuilding our friendship back. Because I miss my baby.
Kalina, we haven't had a chance to hear from you, but it looks like you're very happy to have your brother.
Yes.
And unfortunately, your biological father is deceased. But it's a beautiful thing that you will have your brother to be able to tell you all about him. And ma'am, I have to say to you, you spoke so beautifully about just what it means to love a child. We have counseling and resources for you. Please take advantage of it. I wish you all the very best of luck. Court is adjourned.